Hidden deep in the remote plains of southern Colorado stands one of the most feared prisons in the world, United States Penitentiary Florence High, often overshadowed by its infamous neighbor, ADX Florence. Designed to house some of the most dangerous and violent criminals in the American federal system, USP Florence High is a place where control, discipline, and isolation define daily life. United States Penitentiary Florence High was constructed with one purpose above all others: absolute security. Classified as a high-security federal prison, it was never meant to rehabilitate low-risk offenders or provide second chances to those willing to reform. Instead, it was designed for inmates whose violent behavior, criminal influence, or repeated defiance of prison rules made them impossible to manage in standard correctional facilities. Every aspect of the prison's design reflects this priority, from its reinforced concrete structures to its layered security zones. The location of Florence High in southern Colorado is no accident. Surrounded by vast open land and far from major cities, the prison sits in deliberate isolation. This remote placement minimizes outside interference, reduces escape possibilities, and allows authorities to maintain complete environmental control. The barren landscape itself becomes part of the security system, ensuring that even if an inmate were to breach the inner defenses, survival beyond the perimeter would be nearly impossible. Inside the facility, security operates through strict classification and separation. Inmates are assessed based on threat level, gang affiliation, and disciplinary history, then assigned housing units accordingly. This separation is critical in preventing organized violence, gang dominance, and coordinated attacks on staff or other prisoners. Movement between units is limited, escorted, and tightly scheduled, leaving no room for spontaneity or unsupervised contact. Correctional officers at Florence High receive specialized training to operate in one of the most hostile prison environments in the country. Their daily routines involve constant readiness for violence, including cell extractions, riot control, and emergency lockdowns. Officers are heavily armed in exterior zones and supported by rapid response teams prepared to intervene within seconds. In this environment, authority is enforced through presence, discipline, and immediate consequences. The architecture of Florence High is built around control rather than comfort. Cells are constructed with reinforced doors, narrow windows, and limited furnishings to eliminate opportunities for weapon creation or concealment. Common areas are minimal, and sight lines are intentionally designed to allow guards to observe multiple spaces simultaneously. Even sound is controlled, with thick walls reducing communication between cells and units. Surveillance plays a central role in maintaining order within the prison. Hundreds of cameras monitor corridors, cell blocks, and recreation areas, recording every movement day and night. Motion detectors, controlled electronic doors, and alarm systems ensure that any deviation from routine is immediately detected. Inmates live with the constant awareness that privacy does not exist inside these walls. Lockdowns are a routine reality at Florence High, not an exception. When intelligence suggests potential violence or unrest, entire units can be sealed off instantly. Meals are delivered to cells, movement is halted, and communication is cut to prevent escalation. These lockdowns reinforce the prison's high security status, demonstrating how quickly freedom can be withdrawn in the interest of control. Ultimately, Florence High functions as a pressure chamber within the federal prison system. It absorbs inmates whose behavior threatens stability elsewhere, containing them through force, structure, and relentless supervision. The prison stands as a clear warning within the system. When rules are repeatedly broken and violence becomes a pattern, confinement will become tighter, colder, and more unforgiving. United States Penitentiary Florence High is reserved for inmates who have demonstrated extreme levels of violence, manipulation, and defiance within the prison system. These are not first-time offenders or low-risk prisoners. Many individuals housed here have long criminal histories involving murder, organized crime, terrorism-related offenses, or repeated assaults behind bars. Their presence at Florence High is the result of a pattern, a consistent inability to coexist safely in less secure environments. A large number of inmates arrive at Florence High through forced transfers from other federal prisons. These transfers are often triggered by serious incidents such as stabbings, orchestrated gang violence, hostage attempts, or threats against correctional staff. When traditional disciplinary measures fail, Florence High becomes the destination of last control before total isolation. The prison acts as a containment zone for inmates considered too dangerous to remain elsewhere. Gang affiliation plays a major role in inmate classification at Florence High. Members of powerful prison gangs and criminal organizations are closely monitored due to their ability to influence violence beyond their own cells. Even behind bars, these individuals attempt to control drug trafficking, extortion, and assaults through coded communication and intimidation. Preventing this influence is a daily challenge for prison authorities. Many inmates housed at Florence High are labeled as chronic rule violators. These are prisoners who repeatedly ignore orders, attack fellow inmates, or attempt to exploit staff weaknesses. Their behavior forces the prison to maintain strict disciplinary regimes, including restricted movement, limited privileges, and extended periods of confinement. For these inmates, Florence High represents a system response to persistent disruption. Violence within Florence High is often sudden and calculated. Unlike spontaneous fights seen in lower security facilities, assaults here are frequently planned, targeted, and intended to send messages. Weapons are improvised from everyday materials, and attacks can occur within seconds. This constant threat keeps both staff and inmates in a heightened state of alert. Some inmates at Florence High carry national or international significance due to the nature of their crimes. These individuals may be linked to organized crime networks, extremist groups, or large-scale criminal enterprises. Their incarceration requires additional layers of monitoring, as even indirect communication could pose risks beyond prison walls. The psychological profile of many prisoners at Florence High reflects years of exposure to violence, authority conflict, and institutionalization. Long sentences, combined with restrictive conditions, often deepen aggression and mistrust. Managing such inmates requires a balance of force, control, and strategic separation to prevent escalation. Within the federal prison system, Florence High serves as a warning destination. Its population is a collection of inmates who crossed invisible lines too many times. Every cell holds someone who proved they were a threat not only to society, but to the stability of the prison system itself. At United States Penitentiary Florence High, surveillance is not simply a security feature, it is the foundation of daily life. From the moment an inmate steps inside the facility, every movement is tracked, recorded, and analyzed. Cameras line the corridors, housing units, recreation yards, and entry points, creating an environment where constant observation replaces trust. There are no blind spots, and there is no escape from the watchful eye of the system. Control at Florence High is achieved through tightly regulated movement. Inmates do not walk freely from place to place. Instead, every transfer is scheduled, escorted, and documented. Cell doors open and close electronically from secure control rooms, limiting human error and reducing opportunities for sudden attacks. Even short movements, such as medical visits or recreation time, occur under strict supervision. Armed guard towers surround the prison, providing elevated oversight of the entire complex. Officers stationed in these towers are trained to respond instantly to disturbances, escapes, or large-scale violence. Their presence alone acts as a deterrent, reinforcing the reality that force is always close at hand. Combined with perimeter fencing and detection systems, the towers form an outer shield that few could ever penetrate. Inside the housing units, surveillance extends beyond cameras. Motion sensors, metal detectors, and controlled access points are used to detect unusual activity. Sudden changes in movement patterns or unauthorized gatherings trigger alerts, allowing staff to intervene before violence escalates. The prison operates as a living system, constantly scanning for threats. Sound control is another tool of dominance. Thick concrete walls and reinforced doors reduce communication between cells, preventing inmates from coordinating assaults or spreading unrest. This engineered silence limits the ability to organize, isolate targets, or build momentum for riots. Communication becomes difficult, fragmented, and risky. The psychological impact of non-stop surveillance is profound. Inmates live with the knowledge that they are never alone, never unseen. Every gesture, conversation, and reaction can be reviewed and used against them. This constant monitoring breaks down privacy and reinforces obedience through pressure rather than persuasion. Control also extends to time itself. Daily routines are rigid, repetitive, and strictly enforced. Meals, recreation, and sleep occur on schedules that leave little room for individuality. By controlling time, movement, and visibility, Florence High maintains dominance over both the physical and mental space of its inmates. At Florence High, surveillance is not just about preventing escape, it is about eliminating unpredictability. The prison systems are designed to anticipate violence before it happens, suppress resistance before it grows, and maintain order through omnipresent control. United States Penitentiary Florence High was shaped by violence long before it earned its reputation. From its early years, the prison became a pressure point within the federal system, absorbing inmates whose behavior had already destabilized other facilities. This concentration of high-risk prisoners created an environment where tension was constant, and conflict was never far from the surface. Riots and large-scale disturbances have played a defining role in the prison's history. When rival gangs, ideological enemies, or power-hungry individuals collide in a confined space, violence can spread rapidly. These incidents forced administrators to rethink security strategies, leading to stricter lockdown protocols, reinforced infrastructure, and more aggressive intelligence gathering. Assaults on correctional officers have been among the most serious challenges faced at Florence High. Officers working inside the facility are often targeted as symbols of authority. These attacks range from sudden ambushes to carefully planned assaults using improvised weapons. Each incident has reinforced the need for constant vigilance and rapid response capabilities. Inmate-on-inmate violence is equally brutal and often rooted in control and reputation. Within this prison, violence is not always about emotion, it is strategic. Attacks are used to settle debts, enforce gang loyalty, or eliminate perceived threats. A single assault can shift the balance of power inside a housing unit, making every interaction potentially dangerous. The aftermath of violent incidents leaves lasting scars on the institution. Extended lockdowns, restricted privileges, and increased isolation become routine responses. These measures, while effective in restoring order, also deepen resentment among inmates, creating a cycle where tension feeds future conflict. Over time, intelligence units within the prison have become critical to preventing violence. Officers monitor communication, observe behavior patterns, and gather information to identify brewing conflicts. Many violent episodes at Florence High are stopped not by force, but by early detection and preemptive separation of inmates. The psychological weight of a violent past hangs heavily over the prison. Both staff and inmates carry the memory of previous incidents, shaping how they interact with one another. Trust is minimal, caution is constant, and every day is approached with the expectation that violence could erupt without warning. Florence High's history is written in lockdowns, injuries, and reinforced walls. Each act of violence has hardened the institution, transforming it into a place where security is built on lessons learned through bloodshed and unrest. Life inside United States Penitentiary Florence High places immense psychological pressure on the human mind. The prison's strict routines, controlled movement, and constant surveillance combine to create an environment where stress never truly fades. For inmates, every day feels identical, marked by repetition and restriction rather than progress or hope. Isolation is a defining feature of incarceration at Florence High. While not as extreme as Supermax confinement, social interaction is still severely limited. Inmates spend long hours inside their cells, with minimal opportunities for meaningful contact. Conversations are brief, monitored, and often interrupted, making it difficult to form any sense of normal human connection. The absence of privacy intensifies mental strain. Cameras, controlled doors, and frequent checks mean inmates are always aware they are being watched. This awareness erodes personal identity over time, replacing individuality with compliance. Many inmates adapt by emotionally withdrawing, suppressing feelings as a survival mechanism. Long sentences amplify these effects. Prisoners serving decades, or even life terms, experience time not as progression but as stagnation. Days blur together, and the future becomes abstract. Without milestones or meaningful stimulation, mental health can deteriorate, leading to anxiety, depression, and emotional instability. The prison's environment also encourages hypervigilance. Inmates must remain constantly alert to potential threats from others, even during moments of rest. This persistent tension prevents psychological recovery and reinforces a mindset shaped by fear and mistrust. Sleep becomes fragmented, and stress becomes normalized. For correctional staff, the psychological burden is also heavy. Working daily in an environment defined by hostility and unpredictability takes a toll. Officers must maintain authority while managing their own stress, knowing that one mistake could result in serious injury or worse. Limited access to mental health resources further complicates life inside Florence High. While services exist, demand often exceeds availability, and the stigma of seeking help can deter inmates from using them. As a result, many psychological struggles remain unaddressed. Within Florence High, isolation is not only physical, it is mental. The prison's design and discipline create an environment where psychological endurance becomes as critical as physical survival, shaping behavior, emotions, and identity over time. United States Penitentiary Florence High exists as a critical threshold within the federal prison system. For many inmates, it represents the final warning before total isolation. Those who continue to display extreme violence, manipulation, or defiance within its walls risk being transferred to ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the United States. This looming possibility shapes behavior and reinforces the prison's authority. Florence High functions as a testing ground for control. Inmates housed here are closely evaluated on their ability to follow rules under intense restrictions. Every disciplinary infraction, violent incident, or act of defiance is documented and weighed. For those who fail to adapt, the consequences extend beyond punishment. They may lose what little freedom they have left. The threat of Supermax confinement carries immense psychological weight. ADX Florence is known for near-total isolation, minimal human contact, and years spent inside single cells. Inmates at Florence High are fully aware of this reality. The knowledge that one wrong move could result in permanent isolation acts as both a deterrent and a source of constant fear. Transfers to ADX are not sudden decisions. They are the result of repeated failures. Florence High provides the system with evidence that an inmate cannot be managed even under maximum security conditions. When violence continues despite strict controls, authorities escalate containment to its highest level. This gateway status influences how Florence High is managed. Staff operate with heightened caution, knowing that many inmates are already on the edge of Supermax placement. Separation, monitoring, and discipline are applied with precision to prevent incidents that could force escalation. For some inmates, Florence High is the last environment where limited social interaction still exists. Group recreation, controlled programs, and restricted movement remain possible here. A transfer to ADX would eliminate most of these interactions, replacing them with silence and isolation. The presence of ADX Florence nearby reinforces this reality daily. Inmates know they are physically close to a prison designed to break communication and eliminate risk entirely. The proximity serves as a constant reminder of where continued defiance leads. Florence High stands as a dividing line within the federal system, a place where inmates either submit to structure or are sealed away from all remaining human contact. United States Penitentiary Florence High has come to represent one of the clearest expressions of America's hardline approach to crime and punishment. Built not for rehabilitation but for control, the prison reflects a system that prioritizes security when dealing with individuals deemed beyond reform. Its existence sends a message that when violence and defiance persist, the response will be firm, restrictive, and uncompromising. Within the broader justice system, Florence High occupies a unique role. It is a facility designed to absorb the consequences of failure elsewhere: failure to rehabilitate, failure to deter violence, and failure to maintain order. Rather than seeking transformation, the prison enforces stability through structure, separation, and constant supervision. The policies governing Florence High reflect a philosophy rooted in containment. Strict sentencing laws, transfer protocols, and disciplinary measures funnel the most dangerous offenders into places like this. The prison becomes a physical embodiment of zero tolerance, where control outweighs compassion and safety overrides individual freedoms. Public perception has also shaped the prison's symbolic status. Stories of violence, lockdowns, and extreme security have fueled its reputation as one of the most dangerous prisons in the United States. Media coverage and public fear reinforce support for facilities that promise protection from the most threatening criminals. For policymakers, Florence High serves as proof that the system has an answer for uncontrollable inmates. Its presence reassures the public that no matter how violent an offender becomes, there is always a higher level of confinement available. This belief strengthens support for expansion of maximum security and Supermax facilities. The prison's symbolism extends beyond its walls. It influences how justice is discussed nationally, shaping debates about punishment, human rights, and the limits of incarceration. Florence High stands at the center of these conversations, often cited as both a necessity and a warning. For inmates, the symbolism is deeply personal. Being sent to Florence High marks a shift in identity, from prisoner to threat. It is a label that carries weight, signaling that society has chosen control over redemption. In the end, Florence High is more than a prison. It is a statement of intent, a place where America draws a hard line, asserting that security comes first when danger reaches its limits. United States Penitentiary Florence High stands as a stark reminder of what happens when crime, violence, and defiance collide with the full force of the American justice system. Within its reinforced walls, control replaces compassion, and survival depends on obedience, restraint, and endurance. It is a place where freedom is measured in minutes, and silence carries more weight than words. For the men confined here, Florence High is not just another prison. It is a final barrier between limited control and complete isolation. For those who guard it, it is a constant test of discipline and resolve. And for society, it represents a difficult question. How far must security go to contain danger? As the gates remain locked and the towers stand watch, Florence High continues its mission, absorbing the system's most volatile inmates, enforcing order where chaos once ruled, and reminding the world that some lines, once crossed, lead only to steel, concrete, and endless confinement.